where the camera is to look, but I'm throwing some bowls because next week in our 8-week classes is all about how to trim. And so when I teach trimming, I like to give my students a nice leather hard centered bowl that is ready to go. They all learned about throwing bowls this week. If you're a potter, then you know, like when you throw a pot, you have to let it dry and then you have to flip it. So we're having winter weather ahead of us, and I'm hoping that if I'm not able to get back in here this week, these will be ready for class. So if you're just joining me, welcome, settle in. If you have questions, let me know. I love talking clay. I am a former K-12 art teacher. I specifically taught high school ceramics the past, I don't know, like decade before opening my own studio here in Atlanta. So if you are in Atlanta, we offer one-time workshops just to get the bug, and then we offer 4-week classes. And then my favorite are the 8-week classes, which I teach, and we follow a curriculum. Yeah, I cut my head off just because it's more about watching the process. Do y'all want to see my face? Do you want to see my face? Should I angle the camera differently? Because it's hard. I gotta back y'all up. But we go for a continuous curve, and then the top portion thin enough, and then over here that goes. And I have a whole stack of these bats, and I have a whole bunch of clay, and I'm just throwing. So if you join in and you've got a clay question, drop it in the comments. I'll be checking. And if you're just watching, enjoy. If you notice, this clay had a hole going down it. I don't know why our pug mill is doing that, so I should have wedged this. This is not an instructional video, okay? Let me preface that. Do not do what I'm doing now at home. You should wedge your clay. You should take the time to cone up and down. For me, the purpose of this is just to throw a bunch of bowls, so we're gonna get there. I do like to put a rib to rib to get that continuous curve on the inside. Should slow your wheel down at this point. Our 8-week classes are capped at 12 people, so I have 5 classes of 12. Not everybody is 101. It's 101 and beyond. So some of our students have taken our 8-week class before. Some of our students are advanced, and they do not need a bowl to learn trimming on. But for my students who are learning trimming, I like to prepare ahead of time a perfectly thrown, centered, and leather hard bowl. Let's see. I'll be checking the comments every now and then, so if you've got some, let me know. I am based in Atlanta, Georgia. The weather channel said we're under a weather emergency starting at 1 p.m. It is now 1:30. I'm looking out the window behind me. No winter emergency yet. And again, my hope is that I can get these thrown ahead of that winter emergency. If we're stuck at home, these will be thrown, and so by Wednesday of next week, I can just come in and these are ready. I am trying to keep a little extra thickness on the bottom because when you learn to throw, if your bottom's really thin already, then there's not much to trim. You see this one I should have coned up and down. There's an inconsistency, so let me just compress this wall. It's still in there. You probably see it go bump, 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 bump. Compress this bottom. Slow my wheel. And then I will put a double rib to rib for a bowl. I like to have the softer one get the curve, and then this one meet it, anchored against my body. This hand on the outside is at 3 o'clock, the way my wheel is spinning. And then this hand's gonna push into that rib tool. Patience, rotate, rotate, rotate. And when that interior curve matches from the rib, slowly come up together. Done. Smooth out my bottom. compress. Make a little groove. I'm trying not to leave a knife cut because I want the students to have some clay to trim off. So that's that. This one's done. There are some air bubbles in there, but we're just going for that continuous curve. I'm also doing a time lapse of this. Spoiler alert. This one will probably be too big. So I think it's like part of why I love clay is the oddly satisfying moments and process. So I can't wait to see this time lapse where I have this stack of bats. Y'all can't see here on YouTube, but the stack of bat, I have logs of clay, and then I have this cart behind me. And so the time lapse, I'm excited to see it all progress through a time lapse. Compressing, pulling my wall. Squeeze, 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 bring out my sponge. And I feel like that's thin enough. When your walls are thin enough, you can put a rib on it. Slow release, make sure the center is curved. Smooth here, give a little groove to make wire cutting easier. And then this one's done. Some of these lips are a little high lip. Wire cut, got a chunk here. If you're just tuning in, welcome. I'd love any comments, questions, play questions. I'd love to know where y'all are tuning in from. If you're in the States, how's the weather where you are? They're calling for this big ice storm here in Atlanta. I haven't been able to check recently because we've had class all morning. We're in our 8-week classes. Week 3 just finished. That was week 3 was about throwing bowls. So next week is about trimming bowls. So here I am getting prepped for next week, trimming bowls. And to get prepped, I'm throwing bowls for every student to have one to learn trimming on. And a bowl is all about that continuous interior curve. It could be a big bowl, little bowl, wide bowl, tall bowl. Does it have that continuous interior curve? And is this top bit of the lip thin enough? And once that's thin enough, and you've got your curve, it's done. Don't overlap. When I'm done pulling, I do like to put this rib tool. The inside green rib has a nice curve, and that's pressing out into the yellow rib that's supporting the curve. And then slow my wheel. And how that curve is translated. And then we'll put a little groove so I can wire cut, clean this back, stop it. And these are the black Molly Sanier ceramic speedball bats, so I can just pick them up. Come over here, do another one. So I've done, like, see, don't do this. You should not put your clit in one hunk without wedging it. There are gonna be so many inconsistencies in here, but I've done this a time or two, and I'm gonna tell those inconsistencies who's boss. I'm gonna cone it up and down, working those out. See if you keep the cone. You start at the bottom, you cone it up, squeezing, get to the top, rotate, rotate, cone down. And as you do this, you work out those inconsistencies. Like if you lose some clay, rotate, rotate. Now the clay feels smoother, so I can push to center, then I can open. And I can pull back, make my bottom. Compress to the center, that it's continuous curve. Now my right hand's the boss, I'm gonna pull up the wall. put a rib on it. Okay, then a little groove. Wire cut later. And that bowl is done. I'm trying to think about how many bowls. Ow. Ugh, gross. When you see a wire with like that piece hanging down and I just went like this, ugh, and I caught myself. Gross. Make sure your wire cutter is clean. Then I wrap it up. Ooh. Whoops. Now it's zoomed. How do I zoom back? There we go. I'm trying to cut some clay off of this. Here. Coning up, coning down. Based on how smooth the clay feels, which this one feels much smoother. It doesn't take as long to cone up and down. Because you're just coning up and down to make the clay smooth. Open, pull back, make the bottom, compress. Pull, slowing the wheel. Going for the even thickness. Once your walls are evenly thick, then you can shape it. And you kind of find what you like. I personally love translating this curve to the inside curve there. And then leaving everything dry, clean, a little groove. Okay, I guess all of my students here got the message that because of the weather, we canceled these afternoon classes. I'm trying to kind of get down and out of here myself. Because I don't know if y'all know about Atlanta, but I was new here and learned very quickly that the driving here, like your insurance is gonna like quadruple when you're here, and they're gonna tell you it's because Atlanta is like a terrible driving city. And then once you are on the road, you realize, oh, it's true. So not only is the weather coming, but the drivers here are already a little wild and crazy. So I'm just trying not to be on the roads. This. Cool. There's a little shine down there, which we don't love, but great. We have 9, 10, we have 19 bowls. I'd feel good if we've got, let's see, how many bats do I have here? Push this to center, open, pull back, make the bottom. Hands are always connected. Compress this bottom. Slow my wheel. Right hand's the boss. I feel like I open these too thin. Trimming. Put it on it. Okay. Another one. And I've got this cart right here beside me, so I can just put them on there, and then once the cart is full, I can cover the whole thing with some plastic. You can see this clay is just straight from the pug mill, so it comes out in these little tubes. And it is always good to give them a coning up and a coning down, see what your clay is doing. If it feels funky, cone up and down a few more times. If it feels smooth, push to center. Always holding it steady with your left hand while the right hand's opening and making the bottom right here. They're always connected. Now I'm gonna just also make sure it's compressed and a continuous curve, no weird ridges on the bottom. Slow my wheel, come over to the right hand's the boss, anchor to my hip, hands connect, and the inside hand's gonna push out, and then they're gonna come up together. And with the bowl, you're just going for that interior curve, and then the wall thickness. Only touch it when it's spinning. Press rib tool over 3 o'clock, rib to rib. Make a little groove at the bottom. If you're just tuning in, I would not recommend going this quickly at home. I am just making an advanced bowls for my students to learn trimming on. If I can give them each a leather hard bowl, then that is my goal. And then once they learn how to trim with one of my bowls, then they have it on their bowls. And once they learn to trim a bowl, then everything else makes a lot more sense, I think, trimming. Other forms can be more complicated. So if you are learning clay, I would always say learn cylinders first. Throw them to cut them open and see if they're actually a cylinder. Are they a 90-degree angle? Is your wall evenly thick? Are they nice and vertical on the outside, horizontal along the bottom? Once you crush the cylinders, then throw yourself some bowls, and then learn to trim on a bowl. Trimming's my favorite part, but it took me years to figure it out. So throw many bowls to then practice trimming. We have 2 rows of 9. 9 plus 9 is 18, and then we got 19, 20, 21, 22. Just throw a few more. Cutting up, cutting down. When it feels smooth, I can push to center, and I can open, pull back, make my bottom. Try not to go too thin. I really think I've gone too thin on a lot of these bowls. And then pulling the wall, rotate, put a rib on it. And slow your wheel, slow. Rotate. Pull this out. Boom. Bowl done, put it up here. If you're just tuning in, I love clay questions, so drop them in the comments if you have any. If you want any demonstrations, let me know. I'm Molly Sandor. I'm tuning in live here from my studio, Molly Sandor Ceramics in Atlanta, Georgia. But in preparation of my class, I'm throwing bowls to teach my students how to throw bowls. And bowls can be really all sizes. They can be wide, They can be narrow, they can be tall, they can be short, they can be more upright, they can be more open. It's just about, do you have an interior continuous curve, and are your walls thin enough? I don't like that this lip got funky. We'll cut that off and just soften that. And then we'll do just a little groove. Okay, let me start my time lapse. And I'm gonna move this. Let's do a little video. Real time, gonna slice off some clay. Slamming it that way because there's an air bubble down the middle of it. Now I gotta stick it on there because I got water. Oh, what would I tell my students? Stop and dry it off. Look at those air bubbles, cone up, cone down. This piece has so many inconsistencies because of how I put it on the wheel and not wedging it. Rib to rib. And leave this dry. A little ridge. This looks a little bouncy. Don't love that, but she'll do. Okay, I'm just also recording on my phone, so I'm getting up to check what that's looking like. It's blurry. That one is blurry. So another. This one here. Let me get my clay. All right, let's see. I guess I should have turned this up and down because there's a big air bubble down the middle. I was just gonna press it open, but then if I'm giving this to a student, that means that there'd be a big air bubble down the middle. So let's compress that out by just taking the time to cone up and down. And we'll push this down to center. You can see the inconsistency is kind of lingering. Maybe one more cone up and down. Yes, the air bubble from the beginning is still there. Maybe even just Trying to compress these inconsistencies, but they are still just hiding under the surface. Get this continuous curve, put a rib on it. Might as well level this out. Let's put it over here to dry and get flipped. See, my pug mill is making this hole right down the middle, so I should be taking the time to wedge all of this. But instead, what I'm doing is just coning up and coning down. Right here, like if I was my student, I would have said, well, you just set yourself up for challenge. 1, by not wedging. 2, by not dry tapping this clay into a cone. But I've done this once or twice, so I got it. But if clay is giving you a challenge, don't skip those steps. And then as you cone up and down, the clay should get smoother. Little chunks or inconsistencies that rip themselves off. I'm leaning in with my left hand. Now my right hand can open and pull back to make the bottom. Compress it with a sponge to make sure it's continuous curve and smooth. And now my right hand's the boss. Hands are always connected. Glide my inside hand over, squeeze out, and then come up together. Rotate, 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 slow release. And when you think your walls are thin enough, you're done. Put a rib on it. I like curve to curve so that for this bowl, which is what we're focusing on now in our 8-week classes. If you're looking to learn clay, I love teaching clay. So our 8-week classes are the best for anybody looking to learn clay. We learn all the things, hand building, wheel throwing. Next week we're learning trimming, so I am preparing clay for my students, bowls specifically. I don't know if y'all are potters or not, but when you learn trimming and you're practicing on your own bowl that you're just learning to throw, so your bowl's probably off center, makes it more challenging. So I've learned if I can give my students a leather hard, because it's hard, you gotta like flip it and know when to flip it, get it just right. All right, so I'm gonna stop this video here. Do one more video from above. Right here. If you don't know, like, I think y'all are here on YouTube because you found me on YouTube, but I post a lot on my Molly Sanders Ceramics Instagram and TikTok. And so while I'm live with y'all, I am also recording out of my camera right here. Which, let me stop this. Woo. I'll start that now. Okay, make sure that this is pushed on. Again, I should have wedged up. Why is my pressing down, anchoring this on, coning up. You'll see the twist. We don't like the twist. So we cone up and down, up and down, up and down as many times as it takes to work out those inconsistencies. We're basically squeezing the clay, squeezing any air bubbles up, out through the top. And then eventually it should look nice and smooth. Like, see, there's an air bubble in there and I just ripped it off. So we'll just stop it, slam that back on there. And from here, we'll do a cone down. So I can really just lean on that with one hand, cone down, cone up. And I am feeling all those little inconsistencies. You can see them too, if I open my hand up out of the way. So coning up and down is like wedging on the wheel. Now it feels smooth. So from here, I can push down to center. Rotate, 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 slow release. Right hand is the opening. Pulling back to make the bottom, hold it. Then I can take the sponge, make sure it's slightly lower in the middle. And then right hand's the boss, squeezing, pressing out, and now they come up together. Rotate, rotate, rotate. Start at the bottom. The inside hand is what's in charge of that continuous curve, pressing out. And then up together. When the clay thickness is how you want it, then you can shape it with the rib tool. The green tool has the curve that's going to push out to the yellow hand. The yellow hand on the outside is anchored so that the inside hand can press out into it. And the yellow rib's there to kind of support so the clay doesn't collapse under it. Rotate, rotate, come up together, slow release. Nice. Clean the sponge a bit, because if you leave your clay wet or shiny, which I don't know if y'all can see, then it might deteriorate the clay and leave a crack. So I like to leave this clean and dry. Boom, and then this one's done. Okay, YouTube, thanks for having tuned in with me while I'm through a bunch of bowls. I can show you actually what we've done. We've done all of these. So thanks for tuning in. I think my students are going to be in good shape to have some bowls. Hopefully we'll see how they dry out going forward. Let's see if I can show my face. Okay, thanks for tuning in. I don't know where the camera is. Down here? Right there. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Molly Sanders signing out from Molly Sanders Ceramic Studio here in Adair Park, Atlanta, Georgia. See y'all for the next live. Check out my channel. Leave comments if you want some tutorials. Let me know. And check out my other videos. I got a ton of tutorials out there.